Hey guys, Lizzie here. Welcome back to my channel. So today is laundry day, in case you could not tell. Sorry if you'll be able to hear my washing machine going off in the background, but I'm super excited today to share with you some of the paranormal stories that I actually experienced for myself when I was living with my mom in Charlotte County, which if you don't know where that is, don't worry, you're not missing anything. Here's a picture of where I used to live. Absolutely nothing there. So what's took me so long in order to be able to get this video out to you guys, I was trying to figure out how to move the file from my laptop, which is 10 years old, and just to give you an idea, doesn't even support Google Chrome. So yeah, it's been a fight trying to get just these two files from my laptop to my phone in order to be able to share it with you guys. So what I wanted to do today was share with you some of the paranormal stories that I actually experienced for myself when I was living with my mom in Charlotte County. So when I was 12, my parents actually got a divorce and we ended up moving into my aunt's house that she was renting out. With my mom being a single parent, she had to work a lot. That meant I had to take care of my sister and make sure that she was getting her homework done as well as me getting mine done, and it was a whole thing. So the first night that this stuff started happening, I think I was about 16 or 17 years old. This obviously has been like 10 years ago when all this stuff happened. So I was actually just laying in bed and was trying to fall asleep, and I wasn't even close to it because I have insomnia, and I have for years. I've learned to just deal with it. It wasn't like I was like half asleep, half awake or anything like that. I was laying in bed, it was super quiet, and as I'm laying there, I hear somebody really quietly whisper my name. At first I was thinking, okay, well maybe I'm just like, more sleepy or, more tired than I thought I was. I didn't think anything of it and, just laid back down. I didn't hear it anymore the rest of that night. So the next night I was laying in bed and same thing. It ended up happening 3 nights in a row to where I actually heard my name being whispered like directly in my ear. It was like I could almost feel the breath of the person in my ear. Again, I just let it go. I didn't really pay attention to it. It didn't really bother me much on top of that. And so I never mentioned it to my mom. I never mentioned it to anybody else either. So it's just one of those things I was just like, I'm just going to let it go and not worry about it. Well, about a month or two later, everything goes by as usual, and I'm actually asleep. At this time, it was like one of those little half awake, half asleep type deals. It literally sat me straight up in my bed, and I just hear this blood-curdling scream, like this woman screaming like bloody murder. To where like I sat straight up in the bed and started, looking around because it sounded like it was like in the hallway. And see, my sister slept directly across the hallway in the next room. So literally I'd take a few steps out of my bedroom and there was hers. So I jumped up thinking that it was my mom. I checked on my sister, who was still very much asleep, like straight up snoring. And I thought that was a little weird because again, it sounded like it was like right outside the bedroom. For her not to hear that was, crazy to me. So I go into my mom's room and she's also sleeping. So I wake her up just to be sure. And I'm like, Mom, did you hear that? And she wakes up and she's like, what are you talking about? I've been asleep. And I was like, no, I know, but I was laying in bed and I just heard this woman screaming and I thought it was you and I was making sure you were okay. And she says, no, I've been asleep this whole time. So basically, this scream, I was the only person that heard it. And it scared the ever-living out of me to the point where now I'm starting to get a little shaken up about this house, and I don't like staying there by myself. But with my mom having to work a lot and, me having to take care of my sister, I don't really have a choice. A few months go on, and I don't really hear anything else. And now I'm like 17, 18 years old. And my mom had called me and told me that she was on her way home from work. So I just sat down and started watching TV. My sister was in the other room watching TV. Everything was happy-go-lucky. I wasn't watching anything scary, so it wasn't anything that was like tricking my mind into it. I was literally just sitting down watching, I want to say it was like SpongeBob or something like that, because I don't care how old I get, SpongeBob will never get old to me. So I was sitting there just watching TV, and I heard a truck slowing down, and my mom actually drove a truck, so I got up and went to look out of the front door window. Now, the way the house was set up, like you walk in the front door and there's the living room, and then you walk across the living room and then it immediately goes into the kitchen. Well, there's this long hallway, and that's the hallway that my bedroom and my sister's bedroom was on. So you could see like somewhat into the hallway a little bit from the reflection of this glass. I got up to look out the window to see if it was my mom pulling in. Well, when I go to look out the window, I can see the reflection of everything behind me. So I can see the kitchen, I can see somewhat into the hallway. In that hallway, I saw a little girl in the reflection. She was wearing this like white Victorian dress with these like white stockings. She had brown hair down to her, a little bit longer than mine, down to her shoulders, and it was like really wavy. And she had this big white bow in her hair. It freaked me out for a second, but I like immediately my thought was, okay, well maybe my sister is like playing or something like that. So I turned around and there was nothing there. There was nothing standing in the hallway. It's literally just an empty hallway. The kitchen was empty. There's nobody else in the house but me and my sister. And I turn back and look into the reflection again to see if I can see it again. And guys, it is completely gone. There's nothing there, nothing at all. So I go to check on my sister. She's still wearing like pajamas, which doesn't even look like a nightgown, by the way. So she was just sitting there watching TV. So that freaked me out. That's when I actually said something to my mom, to which of course she looked at me like I was crazy and said, you know, not to worry about it, that everything would be fine, that I'm just imagining things. About a month or two later, I ended up getting a laptop from my grandparents for my birthday because I was getting ready to graduate high school. They wanted me to be able to use it for college. I was actually playing around with that one day because it had a webcam on it. And back then that was a big deal that your laptop had a webcam built into it. Like I said, this was like 10 years ago. So I was playing around with that and I wanted to see how good the audio was on it. I was actually whispering this entire time, like you couldn't hear me at all in this video. You could see me talking, but you could not actually hear me physically. So as I'm messing around with this thing, I go back and I start listening to what I've recorded. And this is the first part of the file that I wanted to show you guys. If you guys have any headphones, now would be a good time to put those on. It's not loud or anything, but it does make it easier for you to hear, because I couldn't hear anything at first either, but the second I put on headphones in general, I was able to hear it. So now would be a good time to pause and go get a pair of headphones, and I'll see you back here. Okay, you got them? Cool. So the first thing that you're gonna hear is this like bumping noise, like you're gonna hear like something actually hits the computer, which by the way, I was not moving, so I still don't know what that bump noise was. And then you hear this little voice afterwards. And to me, it's always sounded like, what's this? But I want you guys to take a listen to it and tell me what you think you hear. Did you hear it? Listen again, just to be sure. Creepy, right? That's not the creepiest one. The next one is actually my favorite one. So after this recording, I actually was telling the guy that I was dating at the time, who was a waste of 1.5 years of my life, but I digress. He was actually a little curious about it, so I told him, all right, well, the most activity that's been happening lately has all been, you know, around my bedroom. So tell you what, let's go ahead, we'll set up my laptop in my bedroom, we'll let it just sit there for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll go back and listen to it and see what we can find. He agreed, and so we ended up setting up the laptop in my bedroom, and I just literally sat it on my bed. Now, I've cut this clip down quite a bit just because, again, it was like 10 minutes of mostly silence, except for this one little part. But what you'll hear is actually me talking, and I'm saying, okay, well right now it's basically just recording sound, and then we're gonna listen back to it. Now, again, this was recorded on a device that is 10 years old, At the time it wasn't, but still the microphone was not that great and I wasn't standing that close to it, so I sound kind of garbled, but that's what I'm saying. Over top of my voice, and by the way, he was not talking at the time. He was listening to what I was explaining. Over top of my voice at some point, you can actually hear somebody whispering something. And I want you guys to be able to tell me what it is. So, take a listen. Did you hear it? I'll give you one more listen. That one to me is clear as day. Like, I can clearly hear somebody else whispering its recording sound. And it's the craziest one that I have, and it's the only two that I ever did. I just got busy with school and everything after that, and I really didn't look much into it again. But my cousin actually lives there now, and he's never heard anything. He's even, like, I've asked him straight up, has he heard anything? Has he seen anything? And he hasn't heard or seen anything. So I guess I'll just never know what it was that was there. I've never actually done any research on the house or anything, but I do know that it used to be an old, like, tobacco field, and then they just cleaned it up, and, you know, my aunt bought the land and they put a house on it. So it's literally all I know about it. But that's all for today's video. I hope it creeped you out as much as it creeped me out when I first heard it. If you have any stories of your own, please email them to me, and I will be trying to feature them on my channel as well, because I do want to do that. I want to take other personal stories and share them on my channel, just because I love hearing other people's stories, and I love hearing, you know, what they've experienced. Be sure to leave me some comments, ideas of what you might think this was going on in the house that I lived in. And also make sure that you hit that like button, hit the subscribe, and the little bell next to it, so you'll know every time I post a video. I know I'm sporadic about it, but it's because I'm trying to do this and have a job at the same time to be able to have a roof in order to continue to do this. I know it's a lot. So, appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will catch you next time. Bye.